Good evening. I'm bringing you a special investigative report tonight, one that delves into the darkest corners of human nature. This is a story that gripped Taiwan, shocked the world, and left investigators questioning everything they thought they knew about family, loyalty, and the devastating power of addiction. What you're about to hear is not fiction. It's not a crime drama or a horror story crafted for entertainment. This is real. This happened. And the woman at the center of this nightmare was not a stranger lurking in the shadows, but a daughter, a wife, and a daughter-in-law. Between the years 2008 and 2009, in the quiet region of Nantou County, Taiwan, a woman named Lin Yuru systematically murdered 3 people who trusted her most. Her victims were her own mother, her mother-in-law, and her husband. But this wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't revenge. This was something far more calculated, far more chilling. Lin Yuru killed for money, insurance money to feed an addiction that had consumed her entire existence. Tonight, we investigate the case that made Lin Yuru infamous as Taiwan's most frightening woman killer. We'll trace her path from an ordinary woman to a convicted murderer. We'll examine the warning signs that were missed, the lives that were destroyed, and the questions that still haunt us today. This is the story of Lin Yuru. Lin Yuru was born in 1982. For the first 2 decades of her life, there was nothing particularly unusual about her. She married Liu Yuhang and, by all outward appearances, seemed to be building a normal life. They had a son together. She had a family that loved her, a mother who cared for her, in-laws who welcomed her. But beneath the surface, something was growing, an obsession, an addiction that would eventually consume everything and everyone around her. In 2003, Lin Yuru began gambling. Not casually, not recreationally, but obsessively. She became addicted to underground lottery betting, an illegal but widespread practice in Taiwan. What might have started as a simple game, a thrill, a hope for easy money, quickly spiraled into something she could not control. Week after week, month after month, Lin gambled and she lost. Again and again, she lost. By 2008, Lin Yuru had accumulated gambling debts totaling millions of yuan. We're talking about a staggering amount of money, debts so massive that there seemed to be no legitimate way out. No salary could cover it. No honest work could repay it. The underground lenders were not patient. They were not forgiving. Lin needed money, desperately. And that's when, according to investigators, she began to plot something unthinkable. She began to see her family members not as people she loved, but as assets, as solutions to her problem, as sources of insurance payouts that could save her from her mounting debts. In 2008, Lin Yuru took out life and accident insurance policies on the people closest to her, her mother, her mother-in-law, her husband, even her 4-year-old son. At the time, no one suspected anything. Insurance is normal, it's responsible, it's what families do to protect each other. But Lin wasn't protecting anyone. She was setting the stage for murder. November 10th, 2008, a day that would change everything. Lin Yuru's mother, Madame Ho Yue-yun, was 53 years old. She was a woman who had raised her daughter, loved her, trusted her completely. On that day, Madame Hu was at home, walking down a flight of stairs, something she had done thousands of times before. But this time was different. According to the investigation that would later unfold, Lin Yuru pushed her own mother down those stairs. Madame Hao fell. The impact was fatal. She died at the scene. Imagine that moment. A daughter standing at the top of the stairs watching her mother's body lying motionless below. Most people would be overcome with horror, with grief, with panic. They would call for help, desperately hoping against hope that their loved one could be saved. But investigators believe Lin Yuru felt something else, relief. Because her plan had worked. The death was ruled an accident. Why wouldn't it be? People fall downstairs. It's tragic, but it happens. And who would suspect a grieving daughter? Lin collected the insurance payout, 5.06 million yuan, more than $750,000. For most people, this money would have come with unbearable guilt, blood money, the price of a mother's life. But for Lin, it was simply not enough. Her gambling debts were still massive. The money disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived, swallowed by her addiction and the people she owed. And that's when Lin realized something terrible. One murder had been easy. She had gotten away with it. No one suspected her. The insurance companies had paid out without question. So why stop at one? By May 2009, Lin Yuru had refined her approach. She had learned from her first killing, pushing someone down the stairs was risky. Too visible, too much could go wrong. She needed something more controlled, more clinical. She needed poison. Her next target was her mother-in-law, Madame Zheng Huishan, a 47-year-old woman who had welcomed Lin into her family. Madame Zheng trusted her daughter-in-law. When she fell ill and needed to go to the hospital, it was Lin who accompanied her, Lin who cared for her, Lin who arranged for her to have a private room so she could recover in comfort. That private room would become her death chamber. According to prosecutors, Lin Yuru carefully crushed sleeping pills and antidepressant medication into a fine powder. Then, when no one was watching, she added these substances to her mother-in-law's intravenous drip. The very equipment meant to heal her was turned into a weapon. Madame Zheng Huishan died in her hospital bed. The death appeared to be from natural causes, complications from her illness. Once again, no one suspected foul play. No one suspected Lin. The grieving daughter-in-law collected another insurance payout, 7.43 million yuan. Two people were dead. Two women who had loved Lin, who had trusted her, who had never imagined that the person standing beside their hospital bed holding their hand might be the one ending their life. But Lin Yuru wasn't finished. There was still one more policy to cash in. One more person who stood between her and financial relief. Her own husband. Liu Yuhang was 27 years old. He was Lin Yuru's husband, the father of her child. By all accounts, he loved his wife. He had no idea that the woman sleeping beside him every night had already murdered his mother. He had no idea he was next. In June 2009, Liu Yuhang fell ill and was admitted to the hospital. And once again, it was Lin who was by his side, the devoted wife, the concerned partner, the woman who would do anything for her husband, except keep him alive. According to the investigation, Lin used the same method that had killed her mother-in-law. She crushed sleeping pills into powder. But this time she added something else, methanol, a toxic chemical that, when ingested, can cause blindness, organ failure, and death. She injected this deadly cocktail into her husband's intravenous drip while he lay helpless in his hospital bed. But something went wrong. Nurses making their rounds discovered Liu Yuhang in distress. They rushed to provide emergency treatment. They saved his life. Lin's first attempt had failed. Most people, having nearly killed their spouse, would be overwhelmed with guilt and relief that they had survived. They would abandon their plan. They would seek help for themselves. But Lin Yuru was not most people. She had come too far. She needed that insurance money. And she had learned that she needed to be more careful, more patient. 1 month later, in July 2009, Lin tried again. This time she poisoned her husband at home, away from the watchful eyes of hospital staff. When he became ill again and was readmitted to the hospital, she once more tampered with his IV drip, adding poison to the fluids meant to save him. This time there were no nurses to intervene. This time Liu Yuhang died. Lin Yuru became a widow, and she prepared to collect 4.75 million yuan in insurance money. She had now killed 3 people in less than a year. Her mother, her mother-in-law, her husband, all for insurance payouts totaling approximately 17 million yuan. But her perfect crimes were about to unravel. Insurance companies deal with death every day. It's the nature of their business. But even in an industry familiar with tragedy, Lin Yuru's claims raised red flags. 2 deaths in 2 months. Both of people closely related to the same woman. Both with substantial insurance policies that had been taken out relatively recently. The insurance companies did what they're trained to do. They looked closer, and they didn't like what they found. They contacted the police. Investigators began reviewing the deaths. They exhumed bodies. They tested blood samples. And what they discovered was shocking. The victim's blood contained substances that should never have been there. Pesticides, medications that had never been prescribed by any doctor, chemicals that had no business being in a hospital patient's bloodstream. In December 2009, investigators obtained a warrant to search Lin Yuru's home. They were looking for evidence, but what they found exceeded their darkest expectations. Hidden in Lin's house was methanol, the same toxic chemical that had killed her husband. There was no innocent explanation for its presence, no legitimate reason for a homemaker to possess such a substance. The evidence was overwhelming. The pattern was undeniable. Lin Yuru had murdered 3 people, and she had done it methodically, coldly, and for nothing more than money to feed her gambling addiction. On April 7, 2010, Lin Yuru was formally charged with 3 counts of murder. The case that would captivate Taiwan had begun. When confronted with the evidence, Lin Yuru made a decision that surprised many. She confessed. She admitted to all 3 murders. She acknowledged what she had done, how she had done it, and why. The prosecutors in Nantou County asked for 3 death sentences. They argued that these were premeditated murders carried out in the most cold-blooded manner imaginable, a daughter killing her mother, a wife killing her husband, a daughter-in-law killing her husband's mother, all for money, all for greed. Taiwan had not carried out an execution since 2005, but prosecutors insisted that if any case deserved capital punishment, it was this one. Lin Yuru was initially sentenced to death and 2 life imprisonments. The nation watched, many feeling that justice had been served. The woman dubbed Taiwan's most frightening woman killer would pay the ultimate price for her crimes. But the story didn't end there. In a controversial decision, the Taichung High Court branch later commuted Lin's sentence. Instead of death and 2 life sentences, she received 3 life imprisonments. The judges cited several factors in their decision. Lin had confessed to her crimes. She had shown remorse. And they believed that a life for a life should not be the primary consideration in sentencing. Lin's lawyer, Zhou Jifeng, stated publicly, "Lin has admitted all crimes. The law should give her a way out. I will suggest that she not appeal." When the commuted sentence was read in court, Lin Yuru sat motionless. Her face showed no expression, no relief, no grief, nothing. But the victims' families had plenty to say. Liu Yuhang's aunt stood outside the courthouse, her voice shaking with rage and grief. "I completely cannot accept this," she said. "I must appeal." She described how Lin had destroyed their entire family, how she had killed her nephew twice, once when she failed and once when she succeeded, how even after being arrested, Lin had shown more concern for her legal defense than for the lives she had taken. The aunt revealed something chilling. After Lin was arrested, she wrote a letter. But it wasn't a letter of apology to the families. It wasn't a plea for forgiveness from the people whose lives she had shattered. It was a letter complaining that the family had hired a lawyer to prosecute her. Even in custody, facing life in prison, Lin Yuru seemed unable to grasp the enormity of what she had done. Legal experts and advocacy groups weighed in on the controversial sentence. Lin Feng, the chief executive of the Judicial Reform Foundation, stated that the judge's decision not to impose the death penalty had merit. He noted that murder does not necessarily require a death sentence and that judicial discretion should be exercised. But he also acknowledged that the victims' families had every right to appeal if they were dissatisfied with the outcome. The case raised profound questions about justice, punishment, and redemption. Can someone who commits such calculated, repeated murders truly be reformed? Does confession and remorse erase the need for ultimate punishment? Where is the line between mercy and justice? These questions continue to be debated in Taiwan and around the world. But beyond the legal debates and the courtroom drama, there are deeper, darker questions that may never be answered. How does a daughter push her own mother down a flight of stairs and then calmly collect insurance money? How does a wife poison her husband not once, but twice, watching him suffer and die? How does a human being become so consumed by addiction that 3 lives become nothing more than financial transactions? And perhaps most disturbing of all, were there other victims? Lin Yuru took out an insurance policy on her 4-year-old son, her own child. She never acted on it, but the fact that she considered him as a potential source of insurance money raises a horrifying possibility. If she hadn't been caught when she was, would her son have been next? Investigators have gone back through Lin's history looking for any unexplained deaths, any suspicious circumstances. So far, they've found nothing. But the question lingers like a shadow. In the years before 2008, before she killed her mother, did Lin Yuru practice? Were there others? We may never know. What we do know is that gambling addiction destroyed not just Lin Yuru's life, but the lives of everyone around her. Her mother never saw her grandchild grow up. Her mother-in-law never got to enjoy her retirement. Her husband never got to see his son become a man. And her son, he lost his father, his grandmother, his great-grandmother, and his mother, all because of an addiction that consumed everything it touched. The case of Lin Yuru stands as one of the most chilling examples of how addiction can transform a person into something unrecognizable. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't self-defense. This wasn't even greed in the traditional sense. This was addiction in its purest, most destructive form. An addiction so powerful that it erased empathy, love, and basic human decency. An addiction that turned family members into dollar signs. Lin Yuru is currently serving 3 life sentences in Taiwan. She will likely spend the rest of her days behind bars with nothing but time to reflect on what she did and who she became. The insurance companies have since tightened their policies, looking more carefully at multiple claims from the same individual. The case has been studied by criminologists, psychologists, and addiction specialists trying to understand how someone could fall so far. But here's what keeps me awake at night, and what should trouble all of us. Lin Yuru was not a monster from birth. She was an ordinary woman who made a choice to gamble, then made more choices to keep gambling, then made the ultimate choice to kill rather than face the consequences of her addiction. Which means that the capacity for this kind of darkness doesn't just exist in some far-off place, in some exceptional criminal. It exists in the choices we make, in the addictions we feed, in the moment we decide that our wants matter more than someone else's life. The question that haunts Taiwan, that haunts me, and that should haunt all of us is this: how many Lin Yurus are out there right now? How many people are one bad decision, one mounting debt, one desperate moment away from doing the unthinkable? And how many families are trusting someone who has already decided that money matters more than their lives? The insurance fraud was solved. The murders were prosecuted. Justice in some form was served. But the real mystery, the mystery of how a human heart can become so dark, that remains unsolved. This has been a special investigative report on the Lin Yuru case. The woman who killed her family for insurance money. The woman they called Taiwan's most frightening killer. The facts are in the record. The verdict has been delivered. But the questions will linger forever in the shadows. I'm signing off. Thank you for watching. And tonight, when you go home to your families, hold them a little closer, because trust is a precious thing, and once broken, it can never truly be repaired. Good night.